step into the future where the beats don't stop, with a not centralized show ready to drop. Talking AI, blockchain, the tech that's hot.
All right, folks, we're back here for another episode of the NC Show, and we've got a great guest here. This is Mark Dwyer. Mark, thanks for coming.
Thanks for watching.
Mark's flown in from Canada, so you're an expat, Aussie originally, but you live over there now, and you've done some amazing things in the fintech and payments and just everything space. But I'd rather hear it from you rather than me chop up and do a horrible intro. I'll do my best. But can you tell us a bit more about yourself? What's led you to, I guess, working with us?
Yeah, so I've been growing fintech companies around the world for best part of the last 20 years. Opened 16, 17 international markets. We've had the pleasure of being managing director of Paiid during the crazy stages of the pandemic, opening up markets for them. Payments and fintech have been very near and dear to my heart over the course of my career, which has taken me to live all across APAC and North America, and work with some really exciting technology that brings disruption to a very traditional sort of category.
Fantastic. And we're going to dive into, you just recently went to the Visa conference, so we'll hear more about that next. You were mentioning as part of this Visa conference that you met with, who was it at Visa?
So head of Visa's analytics and consulting business, okay. Angie. So at the Visa Partner Conference, it was the Future of Payments 24. And it's the biggest conference that Visa's actually ever held. It was down in California, and there was 2,000 odd people that are in the Visa ecosystem around payments, around cybersecurity, around AI. And in the AI stream, Visa's looking at how the network effect of Visa is influenced by AI and what the future looks like for traditional financial services. And this is very, very near and dear to my heart, being someone that's been in payments and financial and fintech for many years. And there's a huge opportunity for AI in traditional financial services. And this is everything from banking to payments to investment communities. And they've identified that just in banking, there's $340 billion.
With a B.
Big B.
Wow.
$340 billion of value to be unlocked with AI. And let's drill down a little bit deeper into that and start to think, hey, AI is a very general, sort of widely used term. And, it all started back in the 60s almost, when it was, a computer is doing something that a human could do. And that was artificial intelligence. But what it is today, to me, if we look at Gen AI, it's really about how do we bring speed and power to our workflows? How do we harness intelligence that's locked in, siloed, disparate data sources and turn that into something that's very usable, that can be either a decision point or a content creation or whatever the case may be. So if we're looking at banking, traditional financial services, the value creation point can touch many different parts of the business. So Visa have identified a couple of really interesting key things, which is around hyper-personalization of products and services. And this one's quite interesting. So if you're a bank, you've got a whole bunch of customers. One use case that I find interesting is we get our paychecks deposited every other week or every month. And let's say for use of example, it's $2,417 every other week. And we can identify using Gen AI that the paycheck deposit is now $3,000 every other week. And what's that mean? That means they've probably got a pay bump, because we're seeing that, regular payment, it goes up a level and it stays regular. It's not like an expense claim that got tapped on or a bonus. But what that means to a bank is we've now identified a cohort of customers that had now got more cash. So what's that mean? They might want a savings account. They might want a term deposit. They might want a mortgage or a credit card or a new product that the bank is offering. So we can do that hyper-personalization just based on that one use case and help the organization be more efficient and offer better products and services to their customers. The next one that was interesting is looking at regulatory changes. So
Okay. Yep.
this is a huge thing, because if you have a regulatory change or a compliance change, you need to look at what the new document is, and that thing could be 300 pages long. And then you want to look at what was the old one and where are the gaps, what's been changed and what's different. And then the next layer that you can put on top of that is all of our internal policies and procedures. How do they map to the new regulatory framework? And identify where the gap is in that. And we can say, hey, all right, SIKE, write me a 3-page policy update based on the changes of our internal policies and procedures, this new regulatory framework, and I need a new document.
It's amazing.
So that's pretty cool stuff.
And it's going to happen there a lot. Now, something that is also, and we've discussed this off camera before, but it's an issue, is the sensitivity of information that you're putting into these AI models. So privacy being a thing, but then also how do you make sure, like on that note that you just mentioned there, the policy change or anything else that's important, given the importance of finance, right? We can't risk things. We can't risk mistakes. And so there is an element of needing humans in the loop for this kind of stuff. But just on that first part, like, information, like we haven't seen it yet, have we? We haven't seen like a major data breach with these models
because of Gen AI or LLM modeling, right? Yeah,
and it's stopping a lot of people from like doing stuff.
It's coming though.
It's coming.
It's coming. Especially if you look at sensitive data, financial services data. If someone in a bank uses an unsanctioned LLM to do their job, in their mind, they're probably not doing something malicious to the bank, right? But what they're doing in essence is they're leaking data out of the enterprise. And once that data, whether it's a PDF document or customer data or modeling or whatever the case is, once that leaves and goes out to an intranet-based LLM, you're not getting that back. Like, that's a one-way street for that data. And we haven't seen, as an industry yet, a huge issue with fraudsters getting a part of this, but it is got to come. Like, that is a world where it's got to come. And I think,
well, if we're not building up protections for it, then it's definitely going to happen.
Yeah. Well, the fundamental architecture of an internet-based, out of the four walls of the enterprise LLM is inherently risky, because you're inherently sending data out. Now, I think the people that will win in financial services for Gen AI are those who can build a piece of technology that sits inside of the enterprise and only works on you inside your enterprise on your internal data, that is secure, that has the framework around it to ensure that it's protected from cybersecurity attacks and whatnot. We know the data in here is safe and it's okay.
Yeah,
and that's going to be a big thing.
And even just making sure that it's onshore. There are companies that, look, we already trust, like the Azure and AWS and Google. Having stuff that stays here onshore is one of the big tick boxes. And with a lot of these tools, whilst they're great, some companies, not all companies, some small businesses, like, we don't mind using like whatever kind of tools, 11 Labs and all this kind of stuff for certain things. But when it comes to sensitive knowledge, needing to tick the box, especially in financial services, that it is here onshore,
right? And
that you know what is being put outside of your organization and where information is at every step of the way, because it's not just talking to the model, but there's even how you vectorize. So in the AI space, when you are uploading a PDF or whatever kind of document, turning those words into numbers, you might have everything else protected, but you're using a service that's inherently setting your stuff overseas there. So there's a potential for data leakage. And sure, it's vectorizing, but you're still sending that PDF overseas, for example. We're seeing things
one-way
happen
PDF,
there.
right? Yeah.
You just don't know yet until like something happens, just how bad it could be. So it's interesting to see that is being at least discussed.
It's identified as a risk point for sure, and I think that's absolutely valid. Another big thing that is being looked at in TradFi is, how do we prove that there has been a human as a part of this process?
Yeah.
How do we prove that unequivocally? And audit trails are king in financial services. So one of the things I love about the product that we've built is using blockchain technology. We can tokenize the prompt, the source data, the output, and have a micro signature button on there, which is like, hey, Mark has reviewed the prompt, the data source, and the output, pressed micro sign, that's been tokenized, put on the blockchain. Now it's an immutable audit trail, and for financial services, the comfort that will bring in that technology is by far and away what is out there today, and what is being sought after, because it's none of the tools that we've seen out in the market today do it in a way where the data doesn't leave the enterprise and has an immutable audit trail.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you can do it just in your own database, and that's fine. But without it being a blockchain-based thing, it is potential. Like, it's got a high potential for manipulation. Like, if it's just a log file, well, how do I know that you haven't tampered with it?
With the log file, yeah.
And then the other thing is that we're adding, not only is it just recording the information onto a blockchain, and now there's different types of blockchains. We won't go into it here, but there's the permissioned, centralized kind of blockchain, is just taking advantage of blockchain tech. And then there's the decentralized ones, which are far more public. But regardless, there's going to be a way to provide that use case to however they want it, the firms that we're building for. But then the other part is that instead of moving the data around, which you would normally see, like, a blockchain is great, but it's got a transparency kind of factor to it.
Right.
There is something called a zero knowledge proof, which we're putting in there so that we can prove elements. Like, you can ask me a question, which is like, did all of my employees sign off on things before, like the outputs of everything that you shared? And here's the list of all the things that you shared. Can you prove that you had someone sign off on all of these, even if it was tweaked and edited after? And you can, but we can prove it without actually having to show you all of the data.
Right.
We can prove elements of it. We can say true or false things. You can ask, like, okay, well, in the cases where you didn't sign off on something, is there like good reasons for it? We can do all of these different kinds of ways of answering questions without actually having to move the data. So not only is there an advantage of blockchain, but there's also an advantage of not having to reveal everything about the data apart from what's absolutely necessary.
Right.
And we believe that that's the future, not just for our solution in AI, because obviously Not Centralized has done stuff in the blockchain space and will continue to. But it's just fascinating when you merge these two technologies together that you get these kinds of outputs that, as you said, you've been to this Visa conference and you're seeing a starting to come up, because we built this 6-9 months ago.
Right.
It's something that we thought this could be interesting. We see the world heading towards this, needing to prove humans in the loop.
Yeah.
And now that we're seeing it, it's helpful. Like it really, it's a great kind of feeling for us. And I guess if anyone else wants to know what is going to happen in the AI future, just talk to us, really, and we'll tell you.
Yeah.
So what is happening?
Well, in our opinion, anyway.
Oh, exactly.
What's also interesting. So just to that point, if we look at investment banks and that side of the financial services sector, having analysts being able to use the power of Gen AI to really supercharge the work that they're doing, but in a very secure and compliant fashion, that's going to mean a lot for the industry. So if we look at, you're getting very sensitive data from your customers that you're under pretty decent NDAs on, right? And you want to use a Gen AI tool to help you go through 12,000 pages of company reports or SEC filings or whatever the case is, or marry the SEC filings with internal reporting and modeling. You can't do that today in a secure internal knowledge enclave, right? You just can't do that because the Gen AI is out in the internet, and it leaves the four walls of the enterprise. But in our world, we've got the ability to sort of bring that capability in-house in a secure, compliant fashion, whilst showing that immutable audit trail that we were just talking about, so that you can show that these analysts we're a part of that process, or building this model, or building this output of this report, or whatever the case is. And it's not just, computers created this, and we've now made some pretty significant investment decisions on the back of that. No, we're proving that there are humans part of that process.
Which is brilliant. And where do you kind of see, because it's different here in Australia, what we're seeing versus like North America, but where do you kind of see just overall, given that you've got a lens on both, where do you see the future state kind of heading with all this AI stuff for financial services, I guess, mainly, but also just in general?
Great and big question. I think we're at an inflection point, and it's kind of the opportunity wave is really just starting to build right now, right? Like we saw 12 months ago or so, the rapid rise of GPT. We're seeing through OpenAI. We're now seeing other models like Llama come out and get really good adoption. Now we're starting to see organizations that were at the point of, oh, this is some sort of hype cycle. Now they're like, actually, no, it's here to stay. We need to figure out how to deploy this in a very meaningful way versus unsanctioned use cases and trying to find use cases for it. I think the use cases within the enterprise, regardless of industry, are starting to get really well defined now. And having the tool set to be able to enable everybody in the enterprise, from the CEO right down and right back up again, to be able to make their jobs faster, more efficient, get more intelligent insight out of documents and drives that are just siloed data warehouses almost, where it's almost impossible to be able to ingest that amount of data and extract insight from. I think that's really a big thing. I think we're going to start to see a lot of progress in hyper-personalization for companies. So whether that's a retail company identifying particular cohorts of customers that they can put new products to or offer special promotions to, we're going to see that. Financial services, we've spoken about a lot today. I think in other sectors like ESG is a big one as well, where there's a lot of change in policies. There's a lot of change in the way that things are being implemented and managed, and the whole carbon category. Like there's a whole bunch of really exciting things that Gen AI is going to be able to, I think, I've said this enough, really bring a lot of speed and power to. And for us, I'm personally very excited for how we can look at very traditional industries and supercharge the way that they do what they do to sort of bring them to the forefront of innovation.
I think that's going to happen a lot more than we see. Like in any year's time, we are seeing the worst that AI is, like, the worst that AI will ever be. So when you think about it that way, well, it's only got one way to go, right? Which is amazing. Okay, well, Mark, thanks very much for that. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you so much.